Have you ever wondered if you could hold a whole world in your hands? It sounds like something from a science fiction story, doesn't it? But what if I told you it's possible? With just a glass jar, some soil, a few plants, and a bit of water, you can create a miniature, self-sustaining ecosystem. We call this a closed jar ecosystem, or a terrarium. It's like a tiny version of our own planet Earth, sealed up and left to its own devices. People create these little worlds for many reasons. Some do it out of pure curiosity, just to see what will happen. Others, like scientists, do it to study the complex relationships between living things in a controlled environment. Making one of these jars is a fascinating experiment. It's a way to watch the big, complicated cycles of our planet play out on a small, observable scale. You get a front row seat to see how life creates energy, how waste is recycled, and how everything is connected. Think about it. Our Earth is also a kind of closed system, floating in the vastness of space. We have a limited amount of air, water, and resources. These jar ecosystems help us understand the delicate balance that keeps our own world alive and healthy. They are a powerful reminder that every single component, no matter how small, plays a crucial role in the survival of the whole. The idea is simple, but profound. Once the lid is sealed, nothing new can get in, and nothing can get out. No fresh air, no extra water, no added food. Everything the inhabitants of the jar need to survive for days, weeks, or even years must already be inside. Can life truly sustain itself in such a confined space? What will happen over 100 days? Will the plants thrive and grow, filling the jar with green life? Or will decay take over, turning everything into a brown, sludgy mess? This experiment is a journey into the fundamental principles of life and death, a battle fought inside a simple glass container. This journey we are about to embark on will track one such jar for 100 days. We will observe the slow, subtle changes and the dramatic shifts. We will explore the science behind what we see, from the way plants breathe to the way microscopic fungi do their important work. This isn't just about watching plants grow. It's about understanding the very essence of an ecosystem. It's a story of struggle, survival, and transformation. So, let's peer inside this glass world and begin our adventure, watching as a handful of simple ingredients attempts to create a lasting pocket of life against all odds. To build our miniature planet, we need the right ingredients. Each component is like a character in a play with a specific role to perform. First, and most importantly, we have the plants. They are the producers, the foundation of the entire system. We might choose small, hardy plants like mosses, ferns, or small-leafed vines. These plants are good at surviving in humid, low-light conditions, which is exactly what the inside of our jar will become. They are the engine of our ecosystem, responsible for creating the food and oxygen that everything else will depend on. Without them, there would be no life to begin with. Next, we lay the foundation, the soil. But it's not just dirt. The soil is a complex living community all on its own. It contains nutrients that the plants will use to grow, and it will hold the water they need to drink. More than that, it's home to countless microorganisms, bacteria, and fungi that are too small for us to see. We also might add a few small creatures like springtails or isopods. These tiny critters are the janitors of our world. They will crawl through the soil and leaf litter, eating dead plant matter and helping to break it down, playing a vital part in the recycling process. Of course, no life can exist without water. When we first set up the jar, we add a small amount of water, just enough to make the soil damp but not waterlogged. Once the jar is sealed, this water is trapped. It will begin a miniature water cycle. The water will be absorbed by the plant roots, travel up their stems, and then be released from their leaves in a process called transpiration. It will then condense on the cool glass walls of the jar, looking like morning dew, before trickling back down into the soil. This cycle ensures that the plants always have water available to them. Finally, we have the air. It might seem like empty space, but the air inside the jar is full of essential gases. It contains carbon dioxide, which the plants need to make their food. It also contains oxygen, which the small animals and microorganisms need to breathe. As we will see, the plants play a magical role in keeping these gases in balance, releasing oxygen as a byproduct of their food-making process. All these elements, plants, soil, Animals, water, and air must work together in perfect harmony. If any one part is missing or out of balance, our entire tiny world could be in jeopardy. How can plants survive in a sealed jar with no food? The answer is a kind of magic, a scientific marvel called photosynthesis. The plants are the chefs of our tiny world, and their kitchen is their leaves. Their secret ingredient is sunlight. Every day, as light streams through the glass, the plants capture its energy. They are like living solar panels, converting light into a form of energy they can use to live and grow. This single process is what powers almost all life on Earth, and it's the absolute cornerstone of our closed jar ecosystem. Without sunlight, our experiment would fail before it even began. Let's look closer at how this amazing process works. Inside the plant's leaves are tiny green structures called chloroplasts. These are what give plants their color. Using the energy they've captured from the sun, the chloroplasts perform a remarkable chemical reaction. They take the carbon dioxide from the air inside the jar and combine it with the water they've drawn up from the soil through their roots. Through this process, they create sugars. These sugars are the plant's food, providing the energy it needs to build new leaves, grow taller, and repair itself. It's a self-sufficient factory running on nothing but light, water, and air. But photosynthesis does something else that is incredibly important for our jar. As a byproduct of making its sugary food, the plant releases oxygen into the air. This is the very same oxygen that we breathe to live. Inside the jar, this oxygen is crucial for the other inhabitants. The tiny springtails and isopods need it to breathe, and so do the billions of bacteria and fungi living in the soil. The plants are not just feeding themselves, they are also creating a breathable atmosphere for the entire community. It's a beautiful symbiotic relationship where the plants provide what others need to survive. So as long as our jar receives a daily dose of sunlight, the plants will continue this vital work. They will continuously produce food to fuel their own growth and release fresh oxygen for their neighbors. You can see this happening. On a sunny day, you might even spot tiny bubbles of oxygen forming on the leaves of your plants. This is the life-giving breath of the ecosystem, the visible proof that the engine of our miniature world is running smoothly. The simple act of a plant turning sunlight into life is the first and most important step in our jar's 100-day journey. In a sealed jar, nothing can be wasted. Every dead leaf, every fallen stem, and eventually, every living creature must be recycled. If they weren't, the jar would quickly fill up with dead material, and the nutrients needed for new life would be locked away forever. This is where the cleanup crew comes in. This team of unsung heroes is made up of fungi, bacteria, and tiny invertebrates like springtails. They are the decomposers, the recyclers of our miniature world. Their job might not be as glamorous as the plants, but it is just as essential for long-term survival. Think about what happens in a forest. When a tree drops its leaves in the autumn, they don't just pile up forever, instead they are slowly broken down and turned back into soil. The same thing happens in our jar. When a plant leaf gets old and dies, it falls onto the soil. Immediately, the cleanup crew gets to work. Fungi will send out tiny, thread-like structures called hyphae, which grow into the dead leaf and release enzymes that dissolve it. At the same time, hordes of microscopic bacteria begin to feast on the decaying matter, breaking it down into even smaller pieces. Our larger janitors, the springtails and isopods, play their part too. They are detritivores, which means they eat detritus, or dead organic material. They munch on the decaying leaves and wood, breaking them into smaller bits. This makes it easier for the bacteria and fungi to do their work. In the process, they also help to mix and aerate the soil, keeping it healthy. They are like tiny plows and composters, constantly turning over the resources of their world. Their waste products, in turn, become food for the microbes, ensuring the cycle continues without interruption. The end result of all this decomposition is incredibly valuable. As the dead material is broken down, the nutrients that were once locked inside it, things like nitrogen and phosphorus, are released back into the soil. These are the very same nutrients that the plants need to grow. The cleanup crew effectively takes the building blocks of old life and makes them available for new life. It's the ultimate recycling program, a perfect loop where death directly feeds life. Without this constant process of decay, the plants would eventually run out of food, and the entire ecosystem would grind to a halt. In our closed jar, two powerful forces are constantly at work: life and decay. On one side we have the plants, reaching for the light, growing new leaves, and producing oxygen. This is the force of life, of creation and growth. On the other side, we have the decomposers, the fungi and bacteria, breaking down dead material and returning it to the soil. This is the force of decay, of recycling and renewal. For our tiny world to survive its 100-day trial, these two forces cannot be at war. Instead, they must perform a delicate and perfectly synchronized dance. When the balance is right, the ecosystem thrives. The plants grow at a steady rate, but not so fast that they overwhelm the jar. As old leaves die and fall, the decomposers have just enough capacity to break them down. The rate of decay perfectly matches the rate of death. This means nutrients are returned to the soil at the same pace that the plants use them. The amount of oxygen produced by the plants roughly equals the amount of carbon dioxide released by the decomposers and animals as they breathe. The system is in equilibrium, a state of beautiful, self-regulating harmony. Imagine a seesaw. On one end sits life, and on the other sits decay. A healthy jar ecosystem keeps this seesaw almost perfectly level. If the plants grow too slowly or start to die off too quickly, the life side goes down. There isn't enough new growth to support the system. If decay happens too slowly, dead material piles up, and the decay side goes down. Nutrients get trapped, and the plants can't get what they need to grow. The perfect balance is a dynamic one, constantly adjusting to small changes to keep the system stable and running smoothly over time. This balance is what we hope to see over our 100-day observation. It's a testament to the resilience of nature. The jar becomes a living example of the circle of life. One organism's waste is another's food. The death of one part of the system provides the building blocks for another. This intricate connection between growth and decomposition is the secret to sustainability, both inside our jar and on our planet. The question is, can this fragile balance be maintained in such an artificial and confined environment? The dance is beautiful, but a single misstep could lead to collapse. While we hope for a beautiful, balanced ecosystem, many things can go wrong inside a sealed jar. This small world is fragile, and a small mistake in its creation or a sudden change in its environment can lead to disaster. One of the most common problems is putting the jar in the wrong place. If it gets too much direct sunlight, the inside can heat up like a greenhouse. This can literally cook the plants, causing them to wilt and die very quickly. The intense heat can stress the entire system, throwing the delicate balance of life and decay into chaos almost overnight. Conversely, too little light is just as dangerous. If the jar is kept in a dark corner, the plants cannot perform photosynthesis. Without light, they cannot create food or oxygen. They will slowly starve, their leaves turning yellow and dropping off. As the plants weaken and die, the primary source of energy and oxygen for the entire system is lost. The small animals and aerobic bacteria, the ones that need oxygen, will begin to suffocate. This creates an opportunity for other, less desirable organisms to take over, tipping the balance decisively in favor of uncontrolled decay. Another major threat is an imbalance in the decay process. Sometimes, a fuzzy, unwelcome guest appears: mold. If there is too much moisture and not enough air circulation, or if a large plant dies suddenly, mold can bloom explosively. It will cover the soil, climb the walls of the jar, and smother the living plants. While some fungi are helpful decomposers, an aggressive mold outbreak is a sign that the system is overwhelmed. The decay process is happening too fast for the system to handle, producing waste products and consuming oxygen at an alarming rate, turning the jar into a smelly, toxic environment. Finally, the very air the inhabitants breathe can become a problem. In a healthy jar, plants produce oxygen and use carbon dioxide, while animals and decomposers do the opposite. But if the plant population crashes, oxygen levels will plummet. At the same time, if decay runs rampant, the decomposers can release too much carbon dioxide. This can make the air unbreathable for the animals and even for the plants themselves. The air becomes stale and toxic. All these potential dangers, too much sun, too little light, explosive mold, and bad air, are lurking, waiting for one small thing to go wrong in our 100-day experiment. Let's imagine what we might see as the weeks go by. In the first week, not much seems to happen. The jar is settling in, the plants look healthy, and the soil is moist. The most noticeable change is the condensation. Each morning the glass is foggy with tiny water droplets, which clear up as the day warms. This is a great sign. It means our miniature water cycle is working. The plants are drinking and breathing, and the water is being recycled. If we look very closely, we might spot a tiny springtail hopping across a patch of moss. The world is quiet, but it is alive and finding its rhythm. By week 4, we start to see more obvious signs of life. The plants have visibly grown. A fern might have unfurled a new frond, or a vine might have sent out a new runner with tiny leaves. This is proof that photosynthesis is happening successfully. The plants are creating enough food to not just survive, but to thrive. We might also see signs of the cleanup crew at work. An old leaf that fell a couple of weeks ago may now look darker and be partially covered by a thin, web-like layer of mycelium from the fungi. The system is active, with growth and decay happening simultaneously in a balanced way. Around week 8, the jar has developed a real personality. It looks like a tiny, wild jungle. The plants have started to compete for light and space, with some growing taller and others spreading out across the soil. We might notice that some of the original leaves have died and disappeared completely, fully recycled back into the soil by the decomposers. The population of springtails might have grown, and we see more of them moving around. The ecosystem is mature and complex. It has found its equilibrium. The air inside smells fresh and earthy, like a forest after the rain, a sign of a healthy balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide. As we approach the 100-day mark, around week 12, the jar might look a bit more crowded and wild. The fastest-growing plants might be pressing against the glass. Some of the weaker plants may have died off, unable to compete for light. This isn't necessarily a sign of failure, but rather of natural selection happening in our tiny world. The strongest survive. The dead plants are now a feast for the decomposers, ensuring their nutrients will fuel the next generation of growth. The jar is a dynamic, ever-changing landscape, a testament to the resilience of life and the efficiency of nature's cycles. As we watch our little world evolve over 100 days, we are faced with the ultimate question: which force will triumph in the end? Is it a battle at all, or is that the wrong way to think about it? On one hand, we cheer for life. We want to see lush green growth, new leaves unfurling, and the vibrant signs of a thriving ecosystem. We see the plants as the heroes, bravely fighting against the confines of their glass prison. Every new shoot feels like a victory, a symbol of persistence, and the undeniable power of life to find a way, even in the most limited of circumstances. But what if decay is the real winner? It's a relentless, patient force. Every living thing in that jar will eventually die. The leaves will fall, the plants will wither, and the tiny animals will complete their life cycles. When they do, the forces of decay are waiting. The fungi and bacteria will consume everything, breaking it all down without exception. From this perspective, life is just a temporary state, a brief moment of organization before everything inevitably returns to its simpler components. Is the lush green growth just a temporary phase before the unavoidable brown sludge takes over? Perhaps the question isn't about one force winning over the other. As we've seen, life and decay are not enemies. They are partners. Life cannot exist without decay. Without the decomposers recycling nutrients, the plants would starve. And decay cannot exist without life. Without the plants producing new organic matter, the decomposers would have nothing to eat. They are two sides of the same coin, forever linked in a continuous cycle. The real victory isn't for one to beat the other, but for the two to remain in perfect balance. So, the true winner is balance itself. A successful 100-day journey for our jar ecosystem is one where neither life nor decay dominates. It is one where growth is matched by decomposition, where production is matched by consumption, and where the circle of life turns smoothly and unbroken. The question is not which will win, but rather, can they coexist? Can this delicate partnership, this dance between creation and recycling, be sustained for 100 days inside a sealed glass jar? That is the true test of our miniature world's success. The 100-day mark has finally arrived. Today is February 17, 2026. We press our faces against the glass for one final close look at the world we've been watching. What do we see? My prediction is that we will see a world that is messy, but beautifully alive. The initial neat arrangement of plants is gone. In its place is a miniature jungle, a bit wild and overgrown. The fastest growing plant now dominates one side of the jar, its leaves pressed against the glass, while the moss has formed a thick, velvety carpet over the soil. It looks less like a garden and more like a tiny, ancient forest. I predict that not all the original inhabitants have survived, and that is okay. A few of the smaller, less competitive plants may have withered and vanished, completely consumed and recycled by the cleanup crew. This is not failure. It is nature's way. The resources they contained have been redistributed, their energy now fueling the growth of their stronger neighbors. The population of springtails is likely thriving, a sign that there is a steady supply of decaying matter for them to eat. The ecosystem has not just survived, it has adapted and matured, finding its own unique and sustainable balance. The signs of a healthy cycle are all there. The glass still fogs up in the morning, showing the water cycle is chugging along. The air inside, were we to open it, would smell earthy and rich, not sour or rotten. This tells us the gas exchange is balanced, with photosynthesis and respiration working in harmony. The soil looks darker and richer than it did on day one, enriched by 100 days of continuous composting by the fungi and bacteria. The jar has become a testament to the power of a closed-loop system, demonstrating that with the right ingredients and a little bit of light, life can sustain itself. So, what is the fate of our jar now, after 100 days? It will likely continue to live on for many more months or even years. The dance between life and decay will continue. New leaves will grow as old ones die. The balance may slowly shift over time, with different plants gaining and losing dominance, but the fundamental cycle, the flow of energy from the sun to the plants, and the flow of nutrients from the dead back to the living, will persist. Our 100-day experiment is a success, leaving us with a beautiful living sphere that serves as a powerful reminder of the resilience, complexity, and interconnectedness of life on our own planet.